The fleet appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's orbital sensors showed empty space. The next moment, 2,000 warships filled the void between Earth and its moon. Each vessel was massive, covered in golden symbols that glowed against black metal. They moved in perfect formation, like a wall of death slowly closing around humanity's home. Captain Helena Cross stood on the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Defiance and watched the approaching armada through the main. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and calm brown eyes that had seen too many battles. She had fought in the Martian rebellion 20 years ago. She had lost friends, buried soldiers, and learned that panic killed faster than any weapon. She did not panic now. "Captain," her communications officer said, his voice tight with fear. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, audio and visual." "Put it through," Cross said. The flickered, a face appeared, if it could be called a face. The creature had pale blue skin stretched over a skull that seemed too long for its body. Its eyes were solid black without whites or pupils. When it spoke, rows of small teeth gleamed behind thin lips. "I am High Arbiter of the Covenant of Unified Species," the creature announced. Its voice was cold and smooth, like ice sliding over stone. "Your species has been detected using faster-than-light travel without authorization. This is a violation of Galactic Law, Section 1, Article 7. You will submit to integration immediately." Cross raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Continued. "The Covenant has governed this galaxy for 10,000 years. Every species within our reach has accepted our law. You have 72 hours to comply with the following demands. First, you will dismantle all military vessels and weapons. Second, you will surrender all colonies beyond your home system. Third, you will accept integration protocols, which will place your species under Covenant supervision for the next 500 years. The alien paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Failure to comply will result in pacification. Your cities will be destroyed. Your population will be reduced to manageable numbers. Your culture will be erased and replaced with Covenant-approved standards. This is not a negotiation. This is notification." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge of the Defiance. Cross could feel her crew watching her. 47 Earthships floated in orbit, a tiny force against 2,000 alien warships. By any reasonable calculation, humanity had already lost. The smart response was fear. The logical response was surrender. Helena Cross smiled. "Open a channel," she said. "Same frequency they used." Her communications officer hesitated. "Captain, shouldn't we contact Earth Command first? Get authorization?" "They heard the same broadcast we did. They know what's happening." Cross straightened her uniform and faced "Open the channel." The connection established. His face appeared again, this time with what might have been surprise in those black eyes. "You respond quickly," the High Arbiter said. "This is wise. State your terms of surrender." "I'm not surrendering," Cross said. Her voice was pleasant, almost friendly. "I'm responding to your demands with a message of my own." "You have no position to make demands, human." "I'm not making demands either." Cross clasped her hands behind her back. "I'm simply informing you that your ultimatum has been received and reviewed. And honestly, it's adorable, really cute. But here's the thing, we have our own laws." For a long moment, did not move. His black eyes stared at Cross as if she had spoken in a language he could not understand. "You have your own laws," he repeated slowly. "That's right, human laws, Earth laws. Laws that we wrote ourselves over thousands of years with our own blood and our own sacrifices. Laws that we fought wars to create and fought more wars to protect." Cross tilted her head slightly. "Your galactic law might work on other species, but it doesn't apply here. This is human space, our rules." "You do not understand your situation," said. His voice had grown colder. "I command 2,000 warships. You have less than 50. Your planet is defenseless. Your species is young and weak. The Covenant has crushed civilizations far greater than yours. I'm sure you have, Cross agreed. And I'm sure those civilizations were very impressed by your ships and your speeches. But humans are different. We don't surrender just because someone points a gun at us. In fact, that usually makes us angry. Anger will not save you. No, but our laws might. Cross stepped closer to the. You see, High Arbiter, human law isn't just a set of rules, it's a promise. A promise we make to each other that certain things are sacred. Life, liberty, justice. We don't give those up because someone tells us to. We don't abandon them because we're afraid. We hold on to them. His thin lips pressed together. This is meaningless philosophy. It's not philosophy, it's who we are. Cross's smile faded, replaced by something harder. You want Earth to submit to your law. You want us to abandon everything we've built and everything we believe in. Then you're going to have to kill every single one of us. And even then you'll fail. Because ideas don't die when people do. They spread. They grow. They infect everything they touch. Then you choose war. I choose nothing except to be human. The choice is yours, High Arbiter. You can leave our system and pretend you never found us. Or you can attack and learn why we've survived every disaster our universe has thrown at us. Cross paused. But I'll warn you now, humanity has never lost a war for its survival. Not once. Not ever. And we don't plan to start today. She made a small gesture to her communications officer. The channel closed. His face vanished from the screen. The bridge remained silent. Then slowly Cross turned to face her crew. They were still afraid, she could see it in their eyes, but something else was there now. Something that looked like hope. Captain, her tactical officer said quietly, "What do we do now?" "Now we wait," Cross replied, "and we prepare. Whatever happens next, we face it together, as humans, as defenders of our home." She looked out at the stars, at the wall of alien ships that hung in the darkness like a threat made solid. "They think their law is absolute," she said, almost to herself. "They think power is the only thing that matters. They have no idea what they're dealing with." On the Covenant flagship Eternal Mandate, High Arbiter sat in his command chamber and stared at where the human captain's face had been. Around him, his officers waited for orders. They expected him to give the command for immediate attack. No species had ever responded to a Covenant ultimatum with anything but terror and submission. But did not give that order, not yet. Something in the human's eyes had disturbed him. Not courage. He had seen courage before, and it always died when the killing started. This was something else. Something that looked almost like certainty. "Bring me everything we have on this species," he said to his intelligence officer. "Their history, their wars, their laws, everything." "High Arbiter, I want to know what we're dealing with before we destroy them." Leaned back in his chair. "Something about these humans troubles me. They should be afraid. They should be begging for mercy. Instead, they speak of their laws as if those laws could stop our weapons." He stared at Earth, hanging blue and green in the darkness of space. "Find out why," he commanded. "Find out what makes them so certain they can survive." The intelligence officer bowed and hurried away, remained in his chair, watching humanity spin slowly in the void. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Uncertainty. The intelligence report arrived within 6 hours. Read it alone in his private chamber, surrounded by silence and the soft glow of data screens. What he found disturbed him more than any military assessment could have. Humanity's history was soaked in blood. They had fought each other constantly, wars over land, over resources, over ideas. They had invented weapons that could destroy their entire species and had come close to using them more than once. By any rational measure, they should have destroyed themselves long ago. But they had not, and the reason why makes blood run cold. After every war, after every disaster, after every moment when their civilization should have collapsed, humans did something strange. They wrote laws. They created rules to prevent the same horrors from happening again. They built systems of justice that held even their most powerful leaders accountable. Studied the images his officers had gathered. A stone pillar covered in ancient writing, something called the Code of Hammurabi. A faded document signed by angry nobles who demanded limits on their king's power. The Magna. Papers and treaties and declarations, thousands of them, stretching across thousands of years. The Geneva Conventions. Rules for war that protected prisoners and civilians, written after conflicts so terrible that humans had decided some things were unacceptable even in battle. The Nuremberg Trials, a court where the winners of a great war had put the losers on trial instead of simply executing them. They had given their enemies lawyers and judges and the chance to defend themselves. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a document that said every human being, no matter where they were born or what they believed, had certain rights that no government could take away. This was madness. This was impossible. The Covenant's law was simple and clean. The strong ruled the weak. Those who had power used it. Those who lacked power obeyed. This was the natural order. This was how the galaxy had functioned for 10,000 years. But human law was something else entirely. It was designed to limit power, not celebrate it. It protected the weak against the strong. It demanded that even rulers follow rules. It insisted that justice mattered more than victory. Summoned his senior advisors to the command chamber. They gathered around the central display table, their long faces reflecting the cold light of the screens. "Explain this to me," said. "Explain how a species that fights itself constantly has survived long enough to reach the stars." "They are contradictory creatures," one advisor said. "They preach peace and practice war. They speak of justice and commit atrocities. They are hypocrites." "All species are hypocrites," replied. "That is not what concerns me. What concerns me is this." He gestured to the display. "After their worst wars, they do not simply rebuild. They change. They create new laws to bind themselves. They limit their own power." "A sign of weakness," another advisor suggested. "Is it?" Leaned forward. "When we conquer a species, what do? They submit. They accept our law because they have no choice. But humans create their own laws after defeating themselves. They bind their own hands. Why?" The advisors had no answer. A soft chime interrupted their silence. A communication from the human vessel Defiance. Accepted it. Captain Cross appeared on the display. She looked rested, calm, as if the threat of extinction was merely an inconvenience in her schedule. "High Arbiter," she said, "I have a formal response from Earth government to your ultimatum. I'm transmitting it now." The data packet arrived. Opened it and found himself looking at a document, thousands of pages long, written in human language with translations provided. "What is this?" he asked. "The Interstellar Charter," Cross replied. "Earth's founding document for our expansion into space. It took us 200 years to write it. 3 wars were fought over its contents. Millions of people died in debates over single sentences." Scan the document. His translators highlighted key passages. Article 1. Every human being possesses inherent rights that cannot be surrendered, revoked, or transferred to any government, organization, or foreign power. Article 7. No human government shall surrender the sovereignty or rights of its citizens to any external authority without the direct consent of those citizens through democratic process. Article 12. The use of force against human populations by any external power shall be considered an act of war against humanity as a whole, requiring unified response. "You understand what this means," Cross said. "Even if our government wanted to surrender to you, they couldn't. Our law forbids it. We literally cannot give you what you're asking for. Then your government will fall, and a new one will surrender." "That's not how it works." Cross shook her head. "The Charter isn't just a government document, it's part of who we are. Every human child learns it. Every soldier swears to defend it. Every citizen believes in it. You could kill our leaders tomorrow and the next leaders would be bound by the same law, and the next, and the next. Then we will kill everyone until no one remains to resist. You could try, Cross's voice remained calm. But here's the thing about human law, High Arbiter. It's not just words on paper, it's an idea. And ideas are very hard to kill. You might destroy Earth. You might hunt down every human colony. But somewhere, somehow, the idea would survive. Someone would remember. Someone would rebuild. And they would teach their children and their children's children that there was once a species that believed some things were more important than survival. Felt his hands tighten on the edge of the display table. You would rather die than submit. We would rather die than betray what we believe in, Cross replied. There's a difference. We're not choosing death. We're choosing to remain human. What happens after that choice is up to you. The transmission ended. Stood in silence. His advisors watched him, waiting for orders. Around them, 2,000 warships hummed with power, ready to unleash destruction on a scale that would take humanity centuries to recover from, if they recovered at all. But for the first time in his career, hesitated. He had destroyed civilizations before. He had broken the will of species far more numerous and far more technologically advanced than humanity. They had all submitted in the end. They had all accepted that survival was more important than principle. These humans were different. They had created laws that bound their own power. They had built courts that judged their own leaders. They had written documents that their descendants were forbidden to betray. They had done all this not because someone forced them to, but because they chose to. What kind of species chose to limit itself? High Arbiter, one advisor said carefully, "What are your orders?" Stared at the image of Earth on his screen. Such a small world, such a fragile-looking species, and yet they had looked at his armada and responded not with fear but with legal citations. "We proceed as planned," he said finally. "Move the fleet to strike position. If they will not surrender, they will be." And their laws? Their laws mean nothing. Turned away from the screen. Words on paper cannot stop weapons. But even as he gave the order, something in his mind whispered a warning. Something about the certainty in Captain Cross's eyes. Something about the weight of thousands of years of human law. He pushed the thought aside. He had a galaxy to govern and a species to break. Whatever the humans believed, belief would not save them from the Covenant's guns. The fleet began to move. The Covenant fleet moved through the space between Earth's moon and the planet itself. 2,000 warships advanced in perfect formation, their weapons charging, their targeting systems locking onto the small cluster of human vessels that stood in their path. Watch from his command throne aboard the Eternal Mandate. His officers reported constant updates, distance to target, weapon readiness, shield strength. Everything was proceeding according to protocol. In less than 1 hour, they would reach optimal firing range. In 2 hours, Earth's defenses would be dust. "High Arbiter," his sensor officer said suddenly, "we are detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system." Define unusual. "I cannot, High Arbiter. They do not match any known power sources. They appear to be everywhere." Frowned, "Show me." The display changed to show a map of Earth's solar system. Red dots appeared across the image, hundreds of them, then thousands. They clustered around planets and moons. They floated in empty space. They lined the approaches to Earth like invisible walls. "What are those?" demanded. Before anyone could answer, every ship in the Covenant fleet received a transmission. Not a voice message, a data packet. It appeared on every screen, in every language, impossible to ignore. Legal notice. You are hereby charged with the following violations of Earth interstellar law. Stared at the screen as the list appeared. Count 1. Unauthorized entry into sovereign human space. Count 2. Threatening violence against civilian populations. Count 3. Attempted coercion of a recognized government. Count 4. Conspiracy to commit mass imprisonment. The list continued. 147 separate charges, each one citing specific articles of human law, each one demanding immediate response. "What is this?" snarled. "It appears to be a legal citation, High Arbiter." "I can see that. Why is it on my ship?" "It was transmitted to every vessel in the fleet simultaneously. We cannot block it or delete it." Communicator activated. Captain Cross's face appeared on his personal screen. "High Arbiter," she said, "I see you received our notice. I should explain what happens next." "This is a waste of time. Your legal games will not stop us." "They're not games." Cross's expression was serious. "Under Earth law, every individual, including non-humans, has the right to due process. That means before we can use force against you, we have to give you fair warning and the opportunity to respond. You are threatening us with warnings." "I'm explaining procedure." Cross gestured to someone off-screen. "Each ship in your fleet has now been individually charged with specific crimes. Each ship has been assigned a case number. Each case will be prosecuted in Earth's courts if necessary. This is not a battle, High Arbiter. This is law enforcement." Laughed. The sound echoed through his command chamber, cold and hard. "You are insane. You have 47 ships. We have 2,000. Your laws mean nothing if you cannot enforce them." "True," Cross agreed. "Laws without enforcement are just suggestions. That's why we built an enforcement system." She pressed a control on her console. Throughout the solar system, the red dots on its map changed. They began to glow brighter. They began to move. "Allow me to introduce you to Protocol 7, Cross said. "Our automated legal enforcement network. Every one of those markers represents a defense platform, a weapons satellite, or a drone fleet. They've been watching you since you entered our system. They know every ship, every weapon, every vulnerability, and they are now legally authorized to enforce the citations we just issued." Felt the first cold touch of fear. "You are bluffing." "I'm not." Cross leaned forward. "Here's how this works. Every ship that received a citation has two choices: stop advancing and submit to arrest, or continue and face escalating enforcement actions. The platforms will begin with warning shots. If your ships ignore the warnings, they will disable weapons systems. If your ships continue to resist, they will be neutralized with minimal casualties. You cannot disable 2,000 warships. Watch us." The first shots came seconds later. Across the fleet, ships reported impacts, not explosions, but precise strikes that damaged nothing except weapons systems and engines. One ship, advancing faster than the others, suddenly went dark. Its weapons died. Its engines failed. It drifted helplessly, unable to fight or flee. "That ship ignored its warning," Cross said. "Its crew is unharmed. Its life support is intact, but it has been arrested. Its case will proceed through our courts. Its crew will be given lawyers and the opportunity to defend themselves." Stared at his tactical display. Across the fleet, ships were being tagged with new markers. Some showed warning status. Others showed weapons disabled. One by one, his armada was being processed like criminals at a courthouse. "This is impossible," he whispered. "It's human law," Cross replied. "We spent 200 years building a system that treats everyone fairly, including our enemies. We didn't want to destroy you, High Arbiter. We wanted to give you a chance to stop, to reconsider, to understand that there are better ways to resolve conflicts than mass murder. You are treating war like a legal proceeding." "Yes, because that's what civilization means. It means having rules that apply to everyone, even in the worst situations. It means believing that justice matters more than revenge." Cross paused. "You can still end this. Order your fleet to stop. Accept the charges. Let our courts handle this properly. And if I refuse, then Protocol 7 will continue enforcement. Every ship that resists will be disabled. Every crew will be detained. And when it's over, you'll face trial anyway, but your people will have suffered for nothing. Looked at his officers. They stared back at him with confusion and fear. Nothing in their training had prepared them for this. They knew how to fight. They knew how to conquer. They did not know how to face an enemy that shot them with legal notices before shooting them with weapons. "Continue the advance," ordered. His voice was harder now, desperate. "All ships, maximum speed. Destroy everything in our path." The fleet surged forward. The enforcement platforms responded. Across the void between Earth and its moon, a strange battle unfolded. Not chaos and destruction, but systematic, surgical precision. Each Covenant ship received exactly as much force as necessary to stop it and no more. Ships that surrendered were surrounded and boarded by human marines who treated prisoners with respect and read them their rights. Ships that fought were disabled with strikes that killed no one but left them helpless. And through it all, Cross's voice continued on every frequency, calm and patient, explaining the charges, explaining the procedures, explaining that even now, even in the middle of battle, every Covenant soldier had the right to fair treatment under human law. Watched his fleet crumble, not in flames and death, but in legal notices and disabled engines. It was the most terrifying defeat he had ever witnessed. Because he could see now what made humans so dangerous. It was not their weapons or their courage or their stubbornness. It was their absolute certainty that their laws mattered, and their willingness to enforce those laws against anyone, anywhere, at any cost. They had turned war itself into a courtroom. And the Covenant had no idea how to fight in that arena. The battle, if it could be called a battle, ended within 6 hours. Of the 2,000 Covenant warships that had entered Earth's solar system, nearly 1,500 had been disabled and their crews detained. The remaining 500 had retreated to the edge of the system, their weapons dark, their engines on standby. Remained aboard the Eternal Mandate, which had not been attacked. The humans had surrounded it with enforcement vessels but had not fired a single shot. Instead, they had sent a message. "We invite you to observe the proceedings," Captain Cross had said. "As the ranking officer of the Covenant fleet, you have the right to witness the trial of your organization." Trial, the word makes blood boil. The Covenant did not face trials. The Covenant conducted them. For 10,000 years, they had been the judges of the galaxy, deciding which species deserved to exist and which would be erased. Now they were the accused. The holographic chamber aboard the Eternal Mandate flickered to life. An image appeared, a large room filled with humans in formal clothing. Some sat at raised benches, wearing dark robes. Others stood at tables covered with documents and screens. Every seat was filled. Every face was serious. "This is the Supreme Interstellar Court of Earth," a voice announced. "Chief Justice presiding." An older woman at the center of the raised bench looked directly at the holographic cameras. Her eyes were sharp and steady. "We are here today to examine charges against the organization known as the Covenant of Unified Species," she said. "The charges include systematic enslavement of sentient beings, destruction of independent civilizations, and crimes against sapient life spanning 10,000 years. Step toward the holographic display. This is absurd. You cannot put the Covenant on trial. We are not subject to your jurisdiction." "You entered our space," Justice replied calmly. "You threatened our people. You attempted to impose your laws on us. In doing so, you submitted yourself to our legal system. That is how jurisdiction works. We recognize no authority but our own. That is your right, but it does not exempt you from consequences," gestured to a screen behind her. "Let the record show that evidence will now be presented." The screen displayed images and documents gathered from across the galaxy, species that had been conquered, civilizations that had been destroyed, populations that had been forcibly integrated into the Covenant system. The evidence went on for hours, testimony from survivors, records from Covenant archives, data recovered from destroyed worlds. Watched in silence, he had seen all of this before. He had participated in much of it. To him, it was simply the natural order of things. The strong ruled, the weak submitted. That was how the galaxy worked. But the humans saw it differently. To them, every conquered species was a victim. Every destroyed civilization was a crime. Every forced integration was an act of violence against beings who had the right to determine their own futures. "The prosecution rests," a human lawyer announced finally. Justice nodded. "The defense may now present its case." Frowned. "Defense? What defense?" "Every accused party has the right to legal representation under Earth law." Gestured to a table where a human man in formal clothing was rising to his feet. "This is Public Defender Thomas. He has been assigned to argue on behalf of the Covenant." "You have assigned a human to defend us," could not hide his confusion. "Why?" Approached the holographic display. He was a small man with tired eyes and a patient voice. "Because that's how our system works," he said. "Even the worst criminals deserve a fair trial. Even enemies deserve someone to speak for them." He paused. "I'm not here to excuse what the Covenant has done. I'm here to ensure that whatever judgment is rendered, it is rendered justly." For the next 2 hours presented his case. He spoke of the Covenant's history, how it had risen from the ashes of an ancient galactic war, how it had brought stability to regions that had known only chaos. He argued that many Covenant policies, while harsh by human standards, had been designed to prevent greater conflicts. He did not claim the Covenant was innocent. He argued for context, for understanding, for a judgment that considered the full complexity of 10,000 years of galactic history. When he finished, the courtroom was silent. Found himself studying the human defender. Here was a man arguing for his enemy, trying to save beings who would have destroyed his entire species without hesitation. It made no sense. "Why?" asked through the holographic link. "Why would you defend us?" Met his eyes. "Because that's what justice requires. If we only gave fair trials to people we liked, it wouldn't be justice. It would be revenge with extra steps." He smiled slightly. "Besides, how you treat your enemies says more about you than how you treat your friends." The judges conferred. After 20 minutes, justice spoke. "The court finds the Covenant of Unified Species guilty of systematic violations of sapient rights across multiple star systems over a period of 10. The evidence is overwhelming. The harm is incalculable." Felt the words like physical blows. "However," continued, "the sentence will not be destruction, it will be reformation." She outlined the terms. The Covenant would submit to external legal review. All species currently under integration would be given the choice to leave. Covenant leadership would face individual trials for specific crimes. The organization itself would be restructured to include representation from formerly conquered species. "This is not about punishment," concluded. "It is about preventing future harm. The Covenant has the opportunity to become something better, an organization that truly serves all species, rather than ruling them. Whether they take that opportunity is up to them." The proceedings ended. The holographic chamber went dark. Stood alone in the silence. His fleet was crippled. His authority was shattered. Everything he had believed about power and law and civilization had been challenged by a species that should have been nothing but prey. He opened a channel to Captain Cross. "You think this changes anything?" he demanded. "You think your verdicts will reshape 10,000 years of history?" "I think they're a start," Cross replied. "I think every journey begins with a single step. I think beings can change if they're given the chance." She paused. "What happens next is up to you, High Arbiter. You can accept the judgment and begin the work of reformation, or you can fight." "If I fight, then we'll stop you, and we'll try again, and again, as many times as it takes. You would spend years, decades fighting us. We would spend centuries building something better. Cross's voice was firm. "That's what humans do. We don't give up on anything, not on ourselves, not on our laws, and not on other species, even the ones who tried to destroy us." Close the channel. He stood in darkness, surrounded by the wreckage of his certainties. For the first time in his long life, he wondered if power truly was the only thing that mattered. And for the first time, he had no answer. The silence lasted 3 days, remained aboard the Eternal Mandate, surrounded by his remaining fleet, watching Earth spin slowly in the darkness. His officers waited for orders. His soldiers waited for battle. The galaxy waited to see what the Covenant would do. On the 4th day, made his choice. "All ships," he broadcast to his remaining fleet, "attack formation. We will not submit to human judgment. We will not accept their terms. We will show them what happens to species that defy the Covenant." The 500 surviving warships powered their weapons. They formed into assault columns. They began their final charge toward Earth. Captain Cross watched them come. She had hoped it would not end this way, but she had known it might. "Protocol 7, she ordered, "full enforcement." The solar system became a courtroom and a battlefield at the same time. Human defense platforms engaged Covenant warships with the same surgical precision they had used before, disabling weapons, killing engines, leaving crews alive. But this time, the Covenant ships kept coming. They fired back. They tried to break through the defensive lines. The humans responded proportionally. Ships that surrendered were boarded and secured. Ships that fought were neutralized with increasing force. Every action was measured. Every response was calibrated to use the minimum violence necessary. His flagship pushed forward. He was determined to reach Earth, to prove that human law meant nothing against Covenant power. Around him, his fleet crumbled, ship after ship going dark, crew after crew being detained by human marines who treated them not as enemies but as prisoners with rights. "High Arbiter," his tactical officer said, "we have lost contact with 70% of the fleet. The humans are. They are reading our soldiers their rights as they detain them. Ignore them, continue the attack. We cannot reach Earth. Their platforms are everywhere. Their response is." I said continue. But there was nothing to continue with. The Eternal Mandate shuddered as its engines failed. Emergency lights flickered across the bridge. One by one, systems went offline, weapons, shields, propulsion. The great flagship of the Covenant drifted helplessly in space. A boarding alert sounded. Human marines were cutting through the hull. Stood in the center of his bridge as the doors opened. Human soldiers in combat armor entered, weapons raised but not firing. Their leader removed her helmet to reveal the face of a young woman with serious eyes. "High Arbiter," she said formally, "you are under arrest for contempt of court and failure to comply with legally issued directives. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to legal representation. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you." Stared at her. Around him, his officers were being detained by other Marines, firmly but without violence. No one was being beaten. No one was being executed. They were simply being arrested. "This is how you wage war?" asked. "This is how we enforce law," the Marine replied. "Come with us, please. We'll ensure you're treated according to all established protocols." They led him through the corridors of his own ship, past his own soldiers who watched in stunned silence as their High Arbiter was taken into custody like a common criminal. Human medics were already treating wounded Covenant soldiers, providing care regardless of species. In the aftermath, Earth broadcast a message to the galaxy, not a declaration of victory, a statement of principle. "The Covenant's authority is dissolved," the message announced. "But no species will be punished for following its laws. Transition courts will be established in every affected system. Every species will be given a voice. Every being will have the right to determine their own future." The message continued. We do not seek revenge. We do not seek empire. We seek justice for everyone, including those who wronged us. The law protects all beings equally, or it protects no one at all. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under covenant rule heard these words. Many did not believe them at first. They waited for the killing to begin, for humanity to reveal its true nature as conquerors. But the killing never came. Instead, human ships arrived carrying not weapons but lawyers and doctors and teachers. They established courts and schools and hospitals. They asked questions instead of giving orders. They listened instead of commanding. And slowly, carefully, they began teaching other species the most dangerous idea in the universe. You have rights. 3 months later, Captain Cross visited in the detention facility where he awaited trial. He had been given a private room, regular meals, access to legal counsel, and the opportunity to communicate with his family. He had been treated better than he had ever treated any prisoner in his long career. "Why?" he asked as she sat across from him. "Why would you do all this? You could have destroyed us. You could have taken revenge for everything the Covenant has done." "Because revenge isn't justice," Cross replied. "Because we believe that how you treat your enemies defines who you are. Because if we had destroyed you, we would have become you. Just another civilization that uses power to crush anyone who disagrees. But we tried to destroy your world. Yes, and we stopped you. And now you'll face trial for your actions. That's how law works." Cross leaned forward. "The Covenant ruled through fear for 10,000 years. We're offering something different. We're offering a galaxy where every species has rights, where every being is protected, where power serves justice instead of the other way around." "You truly believe this is possible?" "I believe it's worth trying." Cross stood. "The trial begins next week. Your lawyer is preparing your defense. Whatever happens, it will be fair." She left him alone with his thoughts. Outside, across the galaxy, something remarkable was happening. Species that had never known anything but covenant rule were learning new words: freedom, rights, justice, due process. They were learning that they did not have to accept whatever the strong demanded. They were learning that law could protect the weak instead of serving the powerful. It would take years, perhaps centuries, to build the galaxy humanity envisioned. There would be setbacks and failures and mistakes. Not everyone would accept the change. Some would fight it with everything they had. But the idea had been planted, and like all human ideas, it spread. It grew. It infected everything it touched. The Covenant had expected to find a primitive species cowering before their might. Instead, they had found something far more dangerous, a civilization that believed in principles so deeply that they would enforce those principles against anyone, including their enemies. In the end, humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had served it with a summons. They had promised that the law would protect everyone equally. And across 1,000 worlds, beings who had never known anything but fear heard a simple phrase for the first time: "You have rights." It was the beginning of everything.